I'd like to call to order the City of Las Vegas Historic Preservation Commission for December the 13th, 2023. Please call the roll and determine if we have a quorum.
Chair Stodel.
Present.
Vice Chair Laramie. Here. Commissioner Levine.
Here.
Commissioner Beck. Here. Commissioner Hotchkiss. Commissioner Serfas.
Here.
Commissioner Cosgrove.
Here.
Commissioner Palacios. Commissioner Moody. Commissioner Perdue. Commissioner Roberts. Commissioner Seabrandt.
Here on the phone.
Commissioner Gillespie. Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, are we in compliance with the state's open meeting law?
Yes, we are in compliance.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Would anybody like to speak at this point? Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 4, chair announcements relative to the Historic Preservation Commission. The chair in the third person does not have any announcements to make at this point. Item 5, for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of October 25th, 2023. Look for a motion.
Commissioner Beck, for the record, so moved.
Further discussion? General public? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Agenda item number 6, 23-0633-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding the approval of a certificate of appropriateness application for the addition of a proposed structure that will be located on the outdoor event plaza adjacent to the National Museum of Organized Crime and Law Enforcement, also known as the Mob Museum, which is located at 300 Stewart Avenue. Mike?
Chairman, we have representatives from the Mob Museum here to present. I believe Jonathan Ullman and Marcy. I'd invite them to go ahead and proceed.
Mr. Ullman, please move forward. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. This is on, right?
Yes.
Members of the Commission, for the record, Jonathan Ullman, President and CEO of the Mob Museum. I'm here with Marcy Kaufman, who is our project director. Thank you for having us. I know that we were only allotted about 5 minutes for the presentation, so we're going to try to move through this relatively quickly, but if there's anything that please do interrupt as we go along if there are any questions.
The board does have a full packet, and I'm pretty sure that every member of the board has reviewed the packet, so we'll work with you on this if you need to shorten your time. I think we have a pretty good understanding of this presentation, so but please go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm just referencing the second slide on why we're here. Just a little bit of background. We've been working on our outdoor space, the event plaza that we intend to situate on the east side of the driveway that is immediately east of the historic building. This project has been was something that we conceived at the start of the pandemic. Got a lot of assistance from the city and ARPA funding in order to facilitate the construction of this event plaza. And in 2021, we were approved for the uses of an event space in conjunction with the museum, as well as the banquet facility and the expansion of our existing liquor establishment. So since that time, we submitted plans to the building department for permitting for the hardscape, the landscape, and the utilities for the event plaza. And now we need to amend the SDR for the purpose-built food and beverage structure that we wish to put on the event plaza. And that's what planning department has, the reason why we're here before the commission today is to get that approval. So we want to make certain that the commission is understanding and comfortable with how this structure will be placed, and that it won't do anything that will adversely affect the historic integrity, the appearance of the museum building, which of course the historic integrity of the building could not be more important to us. So we're hopeful that you will agree with that. I'm just going to skip ahead to the fourth and fifth slides just to make certain that everybody is familiar with the space we're discussing. So if you can see in the very center of this graphic is the museum. To the right of the museum, east of the museum, there is a driveway, and then there is kind of a black rectangle, which is now highlighted on the following slide. That is where the event plaza is located. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button. So just kind of going back here, this is the timeline that we have been following. So just to kind of review again, it was in February 2021 that we got the land use entitlement approving the uses of the space. Between 2021 and 2023, we had the site graded, the fence was approved, the stairs and ramp were installed, and now again we're here specifically for the purpose of getting the approval of that purpose-built food and beverage structure. We did also concurrently with approaching the Historic Preservation Commission, approach the State Historic Preservation Office, which has already approved the plans for this structure. So that approval was received last month. So, and we have a record of that farther along in the deck. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marcy to explain more about the event plaza and the structure and the visual impact.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Commission. For the record, I'm Marcy Kaufman, Director of Special Projects at the Mob Museum. To give you a sense of what the event plaza will look like, here is a rendering of the hardscape and landscape. It will be a beautiful space that will enhance the downtown neighborhood. We like to think of it as an urban park setting. There will be brick and cement hardscape, festoon lighting, trees and plants, and comfortable places for visitors to sit down after visiting the museum or to participate in our public programs. The food and beverage structure that we're proposing today would be placed at the yellow-orange rectangle. Detailed construction documents have been submitted to the building department, and we have them here should you wish to take a look. Of course, as we've been planning this space, we've kept in mind the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. We want to assure this body that this proposed structure complies with the standards and will not physically touch the historic building, change its defining characteristics, diminish the aesthetics of the historic building, impair sight lines of the historic building, or destroy historic materials that characterize the property. This is a rendering of the proposed structure inside the event plaza space. It should give you a sense of the proportions, character, and placement along the east wall. It is anticipated to be a high-quality structure with beautiful wood, brick, and stone finishes that will be consistent with the historic building and complement it, but will not appear historic. This structure will be well-designed and compatible with the building, but physically separated from it and differentiated from it. The proposed structure will be fabricated by Extreme Cubes, who you know from building the container park. It will be made out of steel, so it will be structurally sound. It'll be 32 feet long by 10 feet wide by 11 feet tall. So it will be slightly visible above the existing fence, but set back far enough that it will not impair sight lines of the historic building. There will be a place for art on the left-hand side and potential for some museum-related content inside the structure. The proposed structure will be placed 70 feet away from the historic building, across the driveway, inside the fenced-in event plaza area. It'll be set back from Stewart Avenue and will not impair the public's view of the historic building. It'll be 53 feet from the Stewart Avenue sidewalk and 41 feet from the entrance to the plaza. Here's a detailed look at the finishes. The structure will be clad with Shoshone charred pine wood siding that has a charcoal color. There will be beautiful quartzite countertops, and whitewashed brick will go under the window and main countertop to aesthetically connect with the hardscape pavers. This is a current view of the event plaza. As Jonathan mentioned earlier, the fence has been built. I'm going to share a number of views of the proposed structure from the public's right of way, so you can see the visual impact of the structure on the historic building is negligible. These will be a mix of outdoor photos of the museum building and previously approved fence, with renderings of the structure inserted along with our plans for the brick hardscape and the treatment of the existing wood fence to make it look more attractive. You can see in this image the structure under consideration is on the far right, along with our plans for the brick hardscape to come out from the event plaza to the sidewalk on Stewart and the treated fence. If you couldn't see it, the proposed structure is outlined in pink here. From this perspective, which is roughly the bus stop on Stewart, the proposed structure will not affect the visibility of the historic building. It is set back far enough not to impact it. Here's another perspective of the current view, the Mob Museum and the Event Plaza fence from a little bit further down Stewart Avenue. Again, we have the proposed structure on the far right, along with the hardscape and treated wood fence. And you can see again that the proposed structure is not impacting the sight line of the historic building. Here's another perspective from the corner of Stewart Avenue and North 4th Street. Here's the rendering with the structure. You can barely see it above the fence line. And here it is outlined. And here is one last perspective from across Stewart Avenue at 3rd Street. You can see the event plaza on the right across the driveway from the historic building. Here's the rendering of the proposed purpose-built structure. You can really get a sense here of how the historic building is the focal point, and the proposed structure in no way minimizes it. And again, here is the structure outlined in pink. In closing, I hope that you have seen that the proposed structure complies with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. The structure will not impact the historic character of the building. It will be differentiated from the old building, but compatible with it. The historic integrity of the property and its environment will remain fully intact, and the structure will be or can be readily removed in the future, and in that event would not affect the historic property. And lastly, Kristen Brown at the Nevada State Historic Preservation Office reviewed these plans and images for the purpose-built structure, and she concluded that the structure will not obstruct the view toward the museum building. She stated that the proposed design meets the intent of the covenant, and SHPO granted permission to proceed. We hope the City of Las Vegas Historic Preservation Commission will agree with SHPO's assessment and will also give the Mob Museum permission to proceed. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Before we move along, just wanted to declare for the record that I'm a member of the Board of Directors of the Mob Museum non-paying function. And in the past, the City Attorney's Office said that's all that is needed. So Question, comments? If not, please.
Not where, Hollis Gillespie for the record. I was just curious, the wood siding, would you expect the color of that to change with sunlight, and if so, how would the appearance look?
But I think, just to clarify your question, are you asking different times of day how we think that would affect the appearance, or are you asking if the kind of direct sunlight will cause over
Yeah,
time?
I'm looking at, how that wood is going to change over time with the intensity.
Our
of
expectation is that it will change minimally.
Further questions? If not, look for a motion to approve. Staff recommends that this is approved also.
Commissioner Surface, I'll make a motion for approval.
Further discussion by the commission?
I had a couple questions, if I could.
Oh, please.
It's essentially like a Connex box, an extreme cube. So is that a flat roof, or is there a roofing material on that?
There is a slight angle to the roof, for drainage.
Okay.
And it is a white roofing material.
White roof. Okay, thank you. I also wanted to ask, if that fence was previously approved, so I don't want to concentrate on that too much, but it seems like what you're putting there, although I like the entire project and look, it doesn't seem to fit in material or design or any sort of aesthetic with the building itself. So, I mean, I understand that this is reversible and all that, but we're not using the same stone. The brick, I suppose, I don't even know if that's the same, and then we're not using a green painted wood. We have like 3 different types of wood throughout the entire campus there.
Yeah, thank you for that observation and for the questions. I think a couple things that I would note about that. One, our focus on the structure and the structure finishes were primarily to complement and align with the hardscape and the landscape plans. We were also taking care that, and by design, not seeking to replicate the stone and finishes of the historic building, because we wanted to make certain that there'd be no confusion that the structure outside was in any way historic as well. So there was kind of a deliberate differentiation there. And then kind of with respect to the fence, and I appreciate you also noting kind of that the previous approval there, that approval was also with the understanding that we would be putting some kind of design elements on the exterior, so that it would not be, it's not intended to be 200 feet of just wood, rather that there would be artwork or some other types of design elements that would be mounted on the exterior of that fence, so facing east. So if you are walking on Stewart, or if you're driving on 4th Street, that you would see the wood fence, but with artwork. And again, that artwork would be, could change over time. So it wasn't intended that there would be one permanent design that would be on the exterior of the fence, just kind of in perpetuity.
Thank you for that. But in the information that we received in the packet, it also shows that there's going to be a treatment or a charring, the shoshiban or whatever, to the existing fence as well. Is that correct?
That is our intention.
Okay, but then the new structure and the existing fence, they're not going to match, though.
That's why we're showing you both. The existing fence we will treat so that it works with the new structure and has more of an age quality to look great with the historic building.
Okay.
The finishes that are outside in the event plaza are intended to complement one another.
Okay, not match, but complement, correct? Okay.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
All right. Let's go down to the end.
Cheryl Purdue, Commissioner. I have two questions. One is, who is the user of this space? Is it available for lease by various participants, or is it going to be used by one party? And number two, this space was parking in the beginning. Is there still adequate parking remaining?
So first on the question of uses, the expectation is that this will be publicly available for the majority of the time. There is still the opportunity, though, for people to, or organizations to rent it for private use. So it'll be a combination, much like the museum is now. So we have not identified a calendar that defines what types of activations would occur on what days. But one of the original uses that was anticipated when we first discussed this with the city and extended the banquet and tavern licenses was that this would be an additional outdoor space to complement the speakeasy, which is also kind of a mixed use with respect to serving both general public who go there during the day or in the evening and access it without charge. Obviously the services that are provided inside are fee-based. And then on occasion, private rentals as well. So we have not, I can't give you a firm answer with respect to what that proportion would be. And then to your other question about parking, that currently is not parking on that parcel. So, and in fact, I can reference some images. We just go back to the satellite view. So our primary parking is on the west side of the museum, and then you, I don't know if it's possible to zoom in on this, but, no. Oh, look at that, oh, cool. So the building's here, the event plaza is to the east. Our primary parking lot is here to the west. There's additional parking that goes around the retaining wall, and this is all part of the museum property. And then to the west and north of that, the old transit center lot, which is owned by CIM, is additional parking that is managed by the city of Las Vegas. So they have a management contract for that. We do use this gravel parcel here to the east for parking for employees only at the moment. But we are anticipating, and some may know from the agenda at the upcoming city council meeting on the 20th, that there's a TID agreement that is being proposed or being reviewed by city council that would facilitate our actual paving of that and creating a public surface lot where to the east of the event plaza.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
It does.
Okay. Jack?
No, that was my question, was about the lot.
Okay, then again, the focus that we're looking at today is simply the addition of the food and beverage. This project has been approved in advance. We're just looking at that one building. We have a motion to approve. The further discussion by the commission?
I'll second.
We have a second. General public, any comments? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's move on to agenda item number 7, 23-0634-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding the approval of the first draft of the historic context and reconnaissance level survey of East Las Vegas as a study area generally bounded by South Bruce, Wengert Avenue, North Mojave Road, and Interstate 515. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. A little more than a year ago, back in October of 2022, the HPC awarded a contract for the review, the historic context and reconnaissance level review that was awarded to Broadbent and Associates. As described by the boundary, this is the area that's generally located central to the 5 Points area, Charleston, Eastern, and Fremont. This presentation is to collect questions and edits for the first draft. We will have a second draft presented, anticipated on the next meeting, and with that, I'll turn it over to Broadbent and Associates to present their findings.
Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. My name is Lauren King. I'm Broadbent's project manager for this project, and I appreciate the opportunity to present a very brief presentation of our efforts thus far. And as you know, we conducted our survey and submitted a draft report to the Commission, and so I've been invited to this meeting to give a brief summary of those things. And so in this first slide, you'll see circa 1963 aerial image of that shows a few key landmarks in the project area. On the far west side, we have Charleston Plaza Mall in the center, Crestwood Elementary at the top right, and Bruce running right down the middle. And so this map shows the study area, which has been designated as Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area, which is a HUD designation known as a NRSA. And this is how our study area was defined. And it consists of a little more than 3/4 of a square mile and around 1,100 parcels. And so the purpose of this project was to prepare a detailed history of the study area between 1940 and 1969, to conduct an architectural reconnaissance survey of the study area, to identify potential historic properties in it, and finally, as part of the Underrepresented Communities Grant Program administered by the Park Service, to list one property to the National Register that's significant to the Latino community. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead too fast. Oh, I think I'm missing. Sorry, I skipped a page of my presentation. So our first task was to get a sense of the overall development timeline of the area. And so we used the subdivision as our unit of analysis. And this should have, oh, there we go, a little animation that shows the development of the study area based on subdivision in 5-year increments. And so we developed this timeline that you're seeing based on subdivision tract maps, and assessor's data and aerial photographs. And our timeline tells us that the study area has 42 subdivisions in it, and about 88 or so parcels that are not associated with the subdivision, which is what you're seeing in this last photo. And that the development of the study area was generally concentrated around between 1948 and 1957. And so we fleshed out this timeline using published books, Park Service publications, archival data like historic newspapers, newsletters, and photo collections. And we relied heavily on collections at UNLV, especially an initiative that they have called the Latinx Voices of Southern Nevada, which is a project that collects oral histories from Latino community members. So we consulted a lot of those oral histories too. And we also conducted several informal interviews with knowledgeable community members. So we learned pretty early on that because the Latino history of the study area generally postdates its material development, that in order to fulfill our project goals, we'd have to study the material development alongside the Latino experience within it. So we developed three contexts, which you read in the report and are outlined here, that address architecture, community planning and development, and then the Latino history of the study area. We then conducted a reconnaissance survey of the study area based on our development timeline, And our survey, again, focused on the subdivision level as opposed to the individual building level. And we generally treated each subdivision as a management unit, which is what you read about in the report and which this map is depicting. So generally defined by subdivisions, adjacent tracts, et cetera. And then we also, for those unassociated parcels, we group them basically according to the transportation corridor they're on. So generally, there's some unassociated parcels along Fremont, Eastern, and then there's also the parcels that were unassociated we grouped together that had municipal purposes, so schools, parks, those sorts of properties we kind of assessed as a management unit. And we ended up with 21 management units. And again, this idea of the management unit, I haven't stated this yet, but the goal, a goal of this report is to provide a management tool for the study area. And so that was really the purpose of defining these management units, so that future researchers can go ahead and say, oh, management unit 6 is a potential historic property. Let's take all of the information from that unit and move forward with another phase of research. So once our survey was complete, the city organized a neighborhood meeting at the Rafael Rivera Community Center so that we could incorporate community input into our research and report. During this meeting, Broadbent facilitated a mapping exercise in the spirit of the National Trust's This Place Matters initiative. So we had a few maps on the wall, and we invited community members to come and identify places of significance on the maps. So this helped to identify several places that our research wouldn't have really led us to, namely the importance of public housing and the importance of Freedom Park, which is a pretty valuable resource in the community. And the fact that it was a lot of community members identified it as a place of importance. So after gathering all of our data, we considered properties for inclusion on the city, state, and national registers. We consider potential historic properties to meet these parameters. So if a property, and again, this was mainly focused at the subdivision or district level, if a property had a known or likely association with any of the context that we developed and retained integrity to convey that association, we considered it a potential historic property. And because of the nature of a reconnaissance survey, these are all preliminary recommendations, and hopefully future researchers will take this information and confirm, yes, this is a historic property and we want to list it on a register, do some other community engagement with it, et cetera. Hopefully that they'll take these recommendations further. So we identified 7 potential historic properties in the study area associated with architecture. And here are a few examples. We have these, I think I advanced it. The Moss Tracks are public housing development, individually owned, not run by the city or anything. Relatively intact. We have a small collection of minimal traditional homes. We have some examples of Latino residential vernacular architecture applied to homes in the Boulder Dam home sites. Ernie Cragen Terrace is a 1960s public housing complex that has immaculate integrity, and a multifamily housing complex. So these are some examples of properties we consider potentially to be potential historic properties for their architecture. And we identified 16 potential historic properties associated with community planning and development. These range from multifamily complexes south of the freeway, like Shenandoah Square, to large planned developments like Crestwood Homes, smaller developments like this Bel Air subdivision with this little storybook ranch styles, and then some of the schools like Sunrise Acres Elementary, which is now a bus yard but still has the school buildings on it. We identified 15 potential historic properties associated with the theme of ethnic heritage. And so some of these properties have been previously identified and determined not eligible for listing. However, none were evaluated within this theme, so we think that they should be revisited. An example of that situation is the Boys and Girls Club, And let's see. Oh, this Stewart Plaza was evaluated, but I doubt the researchers knew that it was an early location for the Mexican Social Club meeting place, and the Nevada Association of Latin Americans, a meeting place for them as well. So these are all places we recommended, maybe potential historic properties under this theme. Again, Freedom Park is an important one. An early meeting location for the Mexican Social Club down here. This was an important neighborhood to newly arrived immigrants. And St. Anne's is not only an immaculate piece of architecture, but an important church for the Cuban community. And as you read in the report, we developed a secondary set of recommendations in the hopes of acknowledging that some properties may not fit into existing regulatory frameworks for listing on registers. And so these recommendations identified properties that have a known association with these themes: Latino history on the east side, barrio urbanism, and Latino residential vernacular architecture. And we envisioned such properties as ideal for a placemaking initiative that may be similar in nature to the West Side Sign Program, or, I mean, anything that could be imagined as some sort of placemaking initiative that says these places matter. So we identified 23 properties that should be considered for such an initiative, and 12 of them are outside the study area. Of course, our research kind of stretched a little bit outside the study area based on community input. Here are a few examples. There are 2 sites of public housing, these 2 on the left. One is a vacant lot right now, and one is now the site of the East Las Vegas Library, and we have been told by several people that it's a very important site and would be a really good place to start the placemaking initiative, actually. An early carniceria, the Rafael Rivera Community Center, an early location of the Latin Chamber of Commerce. It's now the Mexican Consulate, and Plaza Escobedo, which I guess was conceived as kind of like an incubator for Latino businesses. And like I said, there's 23. There's a whole list more that you've read about in the report. And finally, as I mentioned, and as you know, this project is intended to result in the listing of a property to the National Register for significance to the Latino community. And we prepared a nomination for the LULAC Multipurpose Senior Center. It was constructed by LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, between 1985 and 1986. It's significant in the areas of ethnic heritage and social history under Criterion A, and as a building that's less than 50 years old, we also applied Criterion Consideration G, acknowledging that as the first building project successfully undertaken by the Latino community in Las Vegas, that it does meet that exceptional significance threshold. And that's all I have for you. I'm glad I was able to present this today, and thanks for reading that report.
Great, thank you very much. A couple of questions, one for the attorney. There are 2 items on this agenda. One is the approval of the first draft, and then the approval of the draft of the National Registration of Historic, the form. Should we take those individually, or can we just vote on this as, since it's on the same memo? They're 2 distinct things.
It's my understanding they're 2 separate items, so you take them separately.
Great, thank you. And Mike, this is really for you. Both of 1 and 2 use the word draft. We are simply approving a draft with comments. Both of these things will come back before the HPC one more time for final?
That is correct. We anticipate in January, but depending on the comments, it is anticipated that it will come back for the second draft approval.
Great, thank you. Comments on the left side and on the right side. Let's start on the right side this time, please.
Commissioner Beck, I want to tell you that I found this report to be very good. Very often we get reports on historic areas, but they really aren't placed in any cultural context. And I know this was given to you with that idea, but you've really done a good job of conveying what the cultural context is and the history prior to the Latino communities and such. And I was very impressed by that. What really struck me was that in the way you did the management recommendations per management unit was very clear in the text. And then you had, under your management summary, a table that showed the different things as well as your management recommendations. And I just found both of those to be quite clear about what you're saying, and also would be very, very useful to people in the future. So I wanted to thank you.
Oh, well, it's great to receive that feedback, because again, that's how we envision the project, as being a tool for future work. So hopefully someone can take the report and the section that's relevant to the next steps and implement some recommendations. Thanks.
Further questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I echo my esteemed colleagues' comments as well, and kudos to you for doing this, and also for recognizing the value of placemaking and citing history in the community. I was recently humbled and selected as Placemaker of the Year by the Urban Land Institute, and we've recognized a number of projects here in the city that deal with preservation of our history and also preservation of community. And this well fits in within those parameters, so thank you again for your efforts. They're really fantastic.
Oh, glad to receive that feedback as well. Thanks.
Further question, comments here, please?
Just another comment, Commissioner Laramie. Building on what was already said, I agree this was a really excellent report, and I particularly really liked your community outreach method and the This Place Matters mapping exercise, and just appreciate that was able to bring forward properties that likely wouldn't have been understood to have historical significance without that input. So thank you for that.
Yep, that was a great exercise.
Thank you. Please, this side.
If you got any more room for compliments, I'd like to share. No, it was really a great read, and very informative, exciting as well. Even some of your citations were of authors who happen to be my former professors at UNLV, so Dr. Miranda specifically, and I have had many spirited conversations both in and outside of the classroom, so I definitely appreciated that, and I was familiar with some of the sources that you cited. Just a couple critiques here, though. I found that the plat maps were not legible for me, so I don't know if it was a scan issue or something like that. And I really love to compare that to modern maps and see the changes and stuff, so that was something that I personally noticed. Also, there was just a few, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but just a few spelling errors, and there was one thing specific about the Shenandoah Square Unit 2. There's some information that seemed conflicting. One in particular, it said 20 units were documented and individually recorded, and then there was also 4 individual units. So just the numbers didn't add up. It was something like that. But beyond that, the only question I actually had for you is regarding the Sunrise water tanks.
Oh, yeah.
That was super cool. Did you find that any of those are still in existence?
Well, so that's outside our project area.
Okay.
But we had a community member give myself and my colleague kind of drove through the neighborhood and pointed out some important sites. And so he brought us to an existing water tank in Sunrise Acres. There's a photo of it I think there should be a photo of it in the report, and a map point on it.
Excellent.
In our management recommendations. The point is on the extant water tank.
Excellent. The last thing that I have here is that I couldn't find Appendix C in the packet, and I was trying to, you had a specific thing about windows or something that you were comparing, and I went to go look at that, and I couldn't find Appendix C. So.
Did anyone else have a hard time finding Appendix C with all the photographs? It's a huge document.
I figured. I went through a couple times, but I'm also not, perfect. So.
I guess I'd have to ask Diane about that, because that's who I submitted the entire report to. So I'm not sure how it got distributed to the commission.
Okay, but all in all, it was really great and very, very exciting to read. So thank you
great.
Very much.
Yeah, I hope more work will be done in Sunrise Acres.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm going to echo the compliments, and it was a great report, great read. I tend to focus on a couple of things. One is the plat maps. I had a conversation with you beforehand about the real opportunity to make those usable, and you're going to look into that.
Yeah.
Great. The other thing, and I've heard this phrase, and it bothers me a little bit, and I think you can address it, and that's this study area. It's mentioned in the administrative summary off the top, north, south, east, and west, and then later on there's some additional details. But I think you really need to make a very distinct, clear that the study area is only within the city of Las Vegas. There are some wonderful opportunities outside the city of Las Vegas within the generic term East Las Vegas. And sometimes when I was reading this, I felt like I was reading East Las Vegas, but I'm not. I'm only this sort of odd, non-square part. So I think we should make it real clear what is included in the study and also what's not included. And maybe you can address, there could be some opportunities that came up at the public meetings of some of the things that are not. But and secondly, there's some wonderful maps, 200 pages in. I suggest we take one map and just bring it up front to the administrative summary so we all right off the bat know exactly what we're talking about. Is all of East Las Vegas, does the study area cover all of the city area in East Las Vegas?
I don't believe, I actually don't, I don't know the answer to that. I don't, like, does Las Vegas extend east of the study area? Yeah, because I think at the northeast, there's some parts of Las Vegas.
Well, I'm really
So,
sorry.
Chairman Stoddall, if I may, to provide some information on that. It does not. So this NERSA area, the Rafael Rivera study area, is a subcomponent of the larger East Las Vegas plan area, which is approximately 4,000 acres. That would cover all of East Las Vegas.
How is this area then? I mean, because it seemed when you look at the maps, all of a sudden, half of one subdivision is not included, half of it's inside, half of it's not outside. How was this sort of irregular map decided upon, or who decided it?
That decision stemmed on having a focus area for quicker implementation of the East Las Vegas plan area items.
Okay.
So that to be considered, I don't think that rules out future opportunity for the remainder of the East Las Vegas plan area. This was just, again, because of some of the HUD grant program requirements, gave us a focus area for quicker implementation.
Okay.
But it does create some challenges where I have to explain that difference.
Okay, so I think if we can make that clear in that we're not talking about all of East Las Vegas, nor even all of East Las Vegas within the city, just for clarification, so as we're reading it, and maybe you can address a little bit what Mike said, that, and I think you already did, there may be some opportunities, the water and different things, so great, thank you for that. The other part is clearly, as you read this, the Latino community really developed late 50s and 60s, and then we saw that. I'd suggest maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs on to let the reader know that the Latino, the Hispanic, the Mexican community was here from 1905. And there was a community and a Catholic church, Hispanic Catholic church, in the early teens. Certainly, let me rephrase that. No, it wasn't early teens, it was 1923. And that was in West Las Vegas, or what is now considered West Las Vegas. That was the Latino community. And I think to reference that, not just that all of a sudden the Latino community developed in 1960, there have been Mexican Americans in Las Vegas from 1905, even before that, but 1905, and I suggest adding just a graph that shows the U.S. Census for the years preceding, and all of a sudden you'll see there's a tremendous growth, and so those would just be 2 pieces of the history of the Latino community in Las Vegas. That may be 27 pages, a couple of paragraphs just to develop that. And this is a minor thing, but to me a major thing, and it's just the adding of a word. In the administrative summary, it says this is for the Las Vegas City Planning Commission. To me, all the work we're doing and have funded over the years is for the community. And I think that we should add just that phrase, this is for city planning, other agencies, but also for the community. I mean, for them to read. And so when I'm reading these things, I'm trying to read them as a member of the community. And so that's my perspective on that. So, but again, to go back to the comments, really a great read and lots of wonderful opportunities that are here and some steps that we can go forward to make those occur. So before we look for a motion, any last thoughts before we?
Well, I just appreciate this, oh, sorry.
Please.
I just wanted to ask you, in trying to look at the census to identify Latinos, somewhere I thought I read that they were originally put into the white group.
Correct.
They were.
Yeah.
So we can't really tell.
Yes, we can.
How do we tell?
Because the U.S. Census requires the person to say where they were born and where their parents were born. And when you go through the 1910 census, it's just easy to and you can go through. But you're exactly right. You're going to have to do a little. It's not like just dialing up, researching or doing a search and say, give me the census, the Latino population in 1910. It'd take a little bit of work, but we didn't have a big city, so there's not a lot of.
Yeah. This has nothing to do with your report, just a comment from me. Is one fact I found just fascinating was I was one time researching early mines in the area, and it was really interesting because the ones that were being recorded in the 1850s, early 1860s, most of them had Spanish names from when it was part of Mexico. And so it's just always fascinated me, and I've always wondered if any of those people were still here or what happened, but there's this gap that no one's been able to get historic information on.
Well, it was hard not to take a deep dive into some of these areas, but I don't know if everyone on the commission is familiar with or knows that the NDOT is preparing a multiple property documentation form for the Latino history throughout Nevada, and they do address that area. They do address.
Oh, good.
We got a
That's
copy of
good
that
to hear.
report
Yeah.
at our last meeting. That was the one that was, I think, 600 pages long.
Yes, I remember it.
Well, I appreciate the feedback, and I do admit that the lack of the community acknowledgement in the beginning was an oversight. I do hope that the report itself communicates our commitment to producing a product and tools that will ultimately benefit the community, but definitely the word needs to be there.
All right, look for a motion on the agenda item 26-0634-HPC1, the first draft report.
Commissioner Surface, I'll make a motion for approval and request that our comments be forwarded along with that motion.
Commissioner Roberts, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion. We have a second for the discussion by the commission. General public? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Let's move on to the next element of the agenda, item 7, which is again 23-0634-HPC1. Agenda item or element number 2, the draft of the National Register of Historic Places, the form. Look for a motion.
Commissioner Surface, again, I'll make a motion for approval with the stipulation that our comments be added to the approval.
All right, we have a motion. Further discussion? General public?
What is this for? I'm so sorry.
This is for the National Register Historic Preservation form, the second item at the on your agenda memo. Within this report, there is a nomination.
Item 8?
No, this is go to the agenda memo at the very bottom. It's there's backup documentation for the first draft report, and then the second documentation is draft of the National Register of Historic Places of the form.
I similarly can't find it, so.
Can't either.
Do you have the,
Yeah.
And Chair, I apologize. The way that the agenda item is written, you've already approved the entirety of the agenda item, so I don't believe that another vote is necessary at this point. At least that's-
well, actually, since we started with one, and that's what the board voted on, we'll need to get rid of that just for the process. We'll need to take that off.
It's not even on the agenda. Right, but it's not written on the agenda to be voted on. Right, so we don't need to vote. Yeah, you don't, there's no vote that needs to be taken on that specific portion which you're referencing. We voted on the entirety of agenda item number 7 just now. So with the way that the agenda is written, it's, in my opinion, all
Okay,
encompassing.
the board only voted on the form. That was the motion.
Approval of the first draft. That's it. What else is there?
I'm confused.
So we can rescind that motion and put a new motion in.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The initial motion was to approve the draft, which is the item on the agenda.
So if that's what the clerk's office says and that's what the city attorney's office recommends, then we will move on. So just so you know that there is a nomination form in this that nominates a specific structure, and that we approve that, and when they come back, they will come back as 2 separate items. One's a nomination to the National Register, and one is simply the survey form. They are 2 distinct items.
Within the Rafael Rivera item? Is it within the Rafael Rivera
The
survey?
nomination is of a structure within the study area. So,
Okay.
but we are clean. We'll move forward. Both items have been approved because we approved agenda item 26-0634 HPC1. If there is a legal problem, we will address it at the next meeting, but it does not appear that there is. So let us move on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Surface, I'll gladly withdraw that second motion if Counselor seems that that's necessary, or the city clerk.
Commissioner Beck, for me, I thought that the motion meant that since the National Register nomination was within what we received in the report, that it covered it.
That's my understanding, and you're voting on the way the agenda item is written, and the way that it's written was already voted on, so if you could just withdraw whatever motion was made about a non-agenda item, then we'll go from there.
Mr. Chair, I will gladly withdraw that second motion. Commissioner Surface.
But that's a motion to withdraw, so now we have to vote on that motion, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion to withdraw the last motion. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of rescinding the previous motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion to rescind passes unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Now, would you like to make the motion and just mention that it covers both areas?
I sure will. Just to repeat that motion for approval, I'm making a motion for approval with the comments received by the commission included in the approval.
We have a second on that?
I second Commissioner Purdue.
Motion and second. Discussion? General public? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Now, see, if you get up, it's going to cause another delay, so please, let's move on to agenda item number 9, which is 20C-0636 HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding... See what happens? 26-0635 HPC1, report by the staff of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department regarding an update on the status of Floydland Park at Tule Springs, located at 9200 Tule Springs Road. Mike, anything to add before we move on?
Chair, no, we have here with us Deputy City Manager Steve Ford to illustrate on the successes that we've had at Floyd Lamb, the wonderful future that he will describe for us.
Welcome and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I was so excited to get up here and do this presentation. Again, Steve Ford, Deputy City Manager. Previously, Director of Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs, which is why I'm giving this particular report. And I'm happy to give you some updates on some things and some future ideas that we have and some proposals that we'll be working on. So Ms. Seabrand asked me to include this particular slide, which is the original. I appreciate the comment about the old maps. This was the state of the art, apparently in 1981, that shows the items or the buildings that were on the register. Everything there on the left-hand side in yellow is on the register. This is as it sits in the submittal, to my understanding. And so there are the buildings. Some of these obviously are not there anymore that were listed. The tennis court obviously is not there anymore. But for the most part, everything else is there. And you can see that historic area boundary of where the what they call the core area of the park. And again, 1981. I thought state of the art was a little bit more than that in 1981, but apparently was not. So just a couple of the historic building updates, some of the things that we've done since the city took over the park in the 2007-2008 timeframe. The first renovation, historic renovation that I was involved with was the Foreman's House. We did both an exterior and an interior renovation on the Foreman's House. We completely redid the roof on it. There on the left, the old kitchen, the Formica tops and everything we tore out and put back with historic or era appropriate appliances, the original colors, all of that in the kitchen. We did some work. This was the before pictures in the main hall in the front with the fireplace. We worked on that 2009, took out the carpet, did some renovations, did some interior furnishings. Looks very, very good. So again, this is the first one that I was involved in. I think many of you are involved or know about the Adobe hut that was done back in 2015. That was a pretty major undertaking just to restore that particular building. I was not involved in this one, but it turned out very, very good. The hay barn that we recently completed, both the interior and exterior of the hay barn, before and after pictures there. The before and after pictures of the interior. The picture on the right was actually the city employee picnic that was held in the interior of the barn just after it was finished back in March of this year. You'll notice just if you look closely there in the back, the black rectangular frames. That was part of the structural upgrades that we did to keep the structural integrity of the barn going. We also put in some lighting, the fire sprinkler system, and the structural supports on the roofing beams. So that was the interior, along with the doors that we cut into on the sides for egress. A few years ago, we did the bridge, upgraded and restored the bridge so it looks a little bit better. The stables in the paddock, I was involved in this way back just after we took it over. The fences were falling down. One of the things that I noticed when we first took over was on this next slide, the feed trough that was there in the stables. When we got it from the state, that feed trough was just about falling down, and it was not in good shape at all. We had some very skilled internal carpenters who restored that feed trough and put it back together. Really turned out really, really well. We've done a couple other things with the old chicken coops and the sheds in the back, the before and after pictures there. Done a couple of those little onesie-twosie things, exterior painting, fixing the fascia, fixing the roof, those types of things. We did the same thing with the milk barn, did some interior work, it was used for storage for a number of years, so we did some interior work there, did the painting, did the repairs on the roof, some other things on the barn. And so that was kind of what we've done. And so what we've been doing with Floyd Lamb is almost a piecemeal. We do a little bit at a time. We do a little bit here, we do a little bit there as we get funding. And so We are proposing, and what we will be proposing to do, is to do a major project up there. And if I could ask your indulgence for 2 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of history on where this came from. So a couple of years ago, my daughter moved to a little suburb outside of Chicago called Villa Park. And my wife and I went back there about a year and a half ago, and we stumbled upon this place called the St. James Horse Farm Forest Preserve. And as we started walking around this forest preserve, it was a completely restored working farm that did horses and hounds. And they actually have a cemetery in the back for horses and hounds that passed away on the site. But as I was walking around this area, I leaned over to my wife and I said, you know what? We need to do something like this at Floyd Lamb Park. We need to bring these buildings back up and make them look all the same and restore them to what they look like. We need to do some interior work. So there at St. James, there's a couple of places where you could walk in and see kind of stuff that was there at the time, the era, appropriate equipment. This is inside the milk barn. So as we got to thinking about this, the more I liked the idea of doing something major at Floyd Lamb Park to do something similar. And so when I got back, I showed these pictures to Diane, and I said, we need to do something like this. I think it would be a great thing to do, because some of those buildings, just like the hay barn, started to go into disrepair. You know, we get to them when we get to them, but we need to do something bigger. And so I scrounged some money. I was the director of Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs. I got some money together, and we hired Richard Weitzel Associates. Weitzel, right? So it's on? No. Richard Weitzel Associates to do an assessment. And the buildings we did the assessment on were basically the same ones that were in, this one shows a little bit better, that were in that earlier picture of the on the historic register. So we're looking at the guest house, the duplex, the bathhouse, generator house, water tower, spring house, powerhouse, and the restroom, the original restroom. And what I wanted to do is take a look at all of these. They all needed exterior work, but there were two that I wanted to, and this was just kind of my own thing, that I wanted to do some interior work so that we could either have public access to go in and look around and see things, or at least have the windows open so you could, or the windows clear so you could look in and see it. So those two buildings were the duplex, because this was the last truly occupied building that was at Floyd Lamb when the Horses for Heroes, and before that they had the horse concession up there. That was but the interior of that building is just a shambles. There's holes in the floors. We really can't walk into the restrooms because we're afraid we're going to fall through the floors. They're not in good shape. And so we had RWA go through and do an assessment on all of these buildings, because I knew I wanted to restore them, but I had no idea what it was going to take. I had no idea what the cost was going to be, all of that stuff. So we went through, they did a pretty thorough assessment of what we need structurally, what we need to do interior. It's just a floor plan of that fourplex that's sitting up there. So that was the first building that I wanted to do. The second building is the generator building. And the reason I wanted to do the generator building, because I'm an engineer by trade, and I want people to see this generator. If you haven't been inside to see this generator, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's circa 40s or 50s. We'll have to do something to it to make it look nice. But it would be cool for people to walk in and see this and to read about it and to see what was there at the time when this was the divorce ranch up there at Floyd Lamb. And so we did the same thing. We went through, we looked at what we needed to do on the interior, what we need to do to make it publicly accessible. So those are the two buildings where we're going to do the interior and the exterior. The rest of these are the exterior only, to bring them up to snuff, basically. All paint, repairs on the roof, repairs on the fascia. Again, they're all different colors right now. The windows are all different. You can see the window there that's a little bit off. This was the bathhouse that was, okay. This was a bathhouse that was outside of the pool when the pool was there. The water tower like to do and make the exterior of the water tower look good. We may have to do a little bit of structural work on this. If you look at the water tower from looking to the south, it's starting to lean just a little bit, and so we need to maybe do some work on that to keep that sound. The powerhouse, which is outside of the water tower, you can see there. So those are the buildings that I want to do the exterior work on to make them all look the same and look good. The other part that we need to do up there as a scope, I know many of you, if not all of you, have seen the informational signs that we have up there that were done maybe 12 years ago-ish, somewhere in there. They're all faded. Some of them are completely illegible. I want to completely redo all of the historical signs throughout the park, not just in the historic area, because there are a few in other places. Get that done. And the other thing that I would like to do is do the sidewalk. I need to go back a few slides. There are some areas, you see the sidewalk right here, that stamp design that's in the sidewalk, that was kind of the original. Some places we don't have that, so I'd like to restore where we can put the sidewalk and restore those stamped. We actually have the stamp in hand, our parks guys have that. And so as you go down and you look at like the generator house, see we have missing sidewalk there, and it's not all the same. So that's part of the scope of this project that I'd like to work on. So really, that's what we would propose. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. What we would propose to do at Floyd Lamb. When I was talking to Diane about this project, she said that this would probably be an excellent application for the Centennial Commission to provide some funding for this. So next month, I will be presenting at the Centennial to request funding for this project so that we can bring all of these buildings up and that makes it look nice up at Floyd Lamb Park. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time in advance. Questions, comments, please.
It's not a question. I just want to say what a cool project this is. With regards to the generator house, I don't know if you visited the pump house at the Springs Preserve, but we finished that a couple of years ago, and it's a very similar building and a piece of equipment inside. As you get started, you should check it out.
Oh, okay.
And if you ever wanted to, I'd be happy to go over there with you and walk you through what we did there.
That'd be great. Thank you.
There's one more piece of equipment that is hidden, and there was an effort to repair it. It's under the West Side School.
Yes, I actually have a picture of that one as well.
Yeah.
The boiler.
Yeah.
The boiler. Yes, I've been there. Thank you, sir.
Questions?
Yes, Commissioner Perdue, just as a matter of curiosity, is the Tule Springs fed by a natural artesian?
No, ma'am. It's not artesian, but it is a well.
So it is groundwater, well water. It's being
Pardon me?
It is groundwater that is being fed into the lakes?
Yes, correct.
Questions? Please.
Commissioner Beck, for the record, in response to what you brought up, I think originally it was spring-fed, decades and decades ago, and then
Water table sunk.
yeah, it was a water table issue. I'm someone who strongly follows what goes on at Tule Springs. It's important to me as a historic site, and I never thought this would happen, so I'm absolutely thrilled that you're going to be doing this. I'd like to ask, is it possible for us to get a copy of your slide presentation?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. No
that
problem
would be
at all.
wonderful to have, and when I go out there next time, I can look at it with that, which would be, I would really enjoy at least.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Not a problem.
A couple of quick questions. You mentioned two reports, the RWA, the architectural
Yes.
report, and then the other one. If both those are available, it would just be great.
There's just the one, the
just the one.
RWA. Yes, sir.
Right, okay. A couple, three or four things. This is a very exciting project. And it's, I guess to me, there are two parts of the project. You get it up and you take care of all the business, maybe potentially through a grant from the Centennial. But then there's part B, and part B is what's happening to the signs. they need to be maintained, and it just can't be normal, the maintenance department, because these are special buildings, and they require some, so I would look as to what additional plan are we going to implement to keep these buildings in better shape from now on, once we get them all painted and the sidewalks done and so forth. Then secondly, with the signs, I would ask that there be a step in between, and we review the material that is on the signs themselves to make sure that we haven't made some historical mistakes. For example, there are stories around that in the 1800s there was a stagecoach route that ran from Tule Springs up into Goldfield. Of course, Goldfield didn't come into existence until 1904, and there would be no reason to run a stagecoach from Helen Stewart's ranch to a place that didn't exist. So I would just ask that, this is an opportunity that you are creating. So let's look at the history, and the easiest way initially is to look at the signs and make sure that, so if there's a filter or a process or some funding, that we can hire somebody to look at the signs and make sure that they're accurate.
Absolutely. If I interrupt you right there, Chairman, one of the other ideas that we are going to explore with this particular project is, as we do these signs, we'll install a little QR code on a corner so that when people can zap it and then get more information on that particular item.
The last one is one that it's going to be difficult. So I went and looked at all the city parks, and how many? 100 and
we've got 87.
87. And one of the things I'm going to suggest is somebody needs to write a history, or at least 2 or 3 paragraphs of who these parks were named after and so forth. But what I've discovered was the city of Las Vegas, outside the state of Nevada, does have one of its state's parks named after a convicted felon. And our city park is named after a convicted felon. Is there any discussion to maybe see if we can adjust that name to Tule Springs or some other geographical area, or is that just not up on the pecking list?
I think that would be worthwhile discussion. I need to check. One of the things we'll need to check is when the agreement that when we took it over from the state, it seems like that agreement had said that it would be known as, that's why it's called Floyd Lamb at Tule Springs.
Yeah.
Councilman Ross, if you remember, wanted to add the Tule Springs portion to it, but I think in that decree where we took it over, there was some language. But that's something we could look at, absolutely.
I have another comment.
At another time.
No, I have a comment.
Oh, you have a comment. Oh, please.
Commissioner Beck, on that, my background's in, one of my fields is archaeology. And so I had always read about the Tule Springs site, and then we know that that's now turned into a national park area. But I could not find Tule Springs because of the name Floyd Lamb Park. And so eventually I figured it out, that was, the water source there at Tule Springs, and was really interested in it. And I fully support getting it renamed just for its geographic area.
Understood.
Any guess on cost?
Yes, sir. We will be presenting an application to the Centennial Commission somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 million.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's almost all the money they have.
My understanding at the current time, the Centennial has almost $8 million in the fund.
Other questions? Yes.
Commissioner Perdue, that $4 million is simply for Tule Springs?
That's correct. Pardon me?
Including signs?
Yes.
Last question, please.
Yes, Commissioner Roberts, thanks for the presentation. A couple things. One regarding the signage and the wayfinding or whatever it is. I presume or I hope that we'd be looking into other maybe materials or applications so they won't need to be replaced within 12 years, which is a pretty short period of time. I like the comment about using a QR code so that if we do find something inaccurate, it can be adjusted quickly or corrected quickly. Also, I noticed in some of the photos of your slides, on the slides there, that there were some windows that looked to be replaced with compatible windows, like we had steel sash casement windows, and then they showed so these look to be all pretty close intact, but there's a couple that showed hopper windows that weren't. So I would suggest that, like, there's a good example there. So some of those hopper windows don't look like they would be original. I could be wrong, but I would suggest that those get changed out to something that is more accurate for the time period. And then the last thing I wanted to ask about is separate from your presentation, but I was at the park it was years ago actually, and there was a tree that had fallen on one of the buildings, and it wasn't super significantly damaged, but I just wanted to know what I think it was near that, this one, it was near that tower building there or whatever, but yeah, I assume it was fixed.
Nope. It was actually the foreman's house because I'm the one who fixed it.
Oh, okay. Nice.
My crew fixed it.
Right.
It was this building right here.
Okay.
If you look on the far right-hand side, there was a tree that hit that corner.
Yes.
And yeah, we repaired that within, it wasn't very long. It didn't take very long to
But
get
it
out
wasn't major structural,
No.
like to the trusses or anything? Okay.
No.
Interesting. Great. Thank you so much.
Last comments? Otherwise, we appreciate that and look forward to hearing what's going to take place after your next vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was a serious comment, because thank you for thinking about Las Vegas when you were on vacation.
Thank you for your time.
Agenda item. I'm going to look at agenda item 9. Discussion for possible action regarding approval of funding in the amount of $13,315 to Northwind Resource Consulting to complete Section 5 of the Architectural Resource Assessment Forms required by the State Historic Preservation Office for the historic context and reconnaissance level survey of the Twin Lakes area. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. For this item, back in May of this year, the Historic Preservation Commission, as you stated, awarded $45,000 to Northwind Resources to complete the architectural resource assessments. In the process of doing that work, they were completing sections 1 through 4, and they had some feedback and comments coming from the State Historic Preservation Office that they needed to also complete Section 5. As per the contract, that work was not included. So there was a funding shortage, which is where we're requesting that $13,315 so that our consultant can go back through at SHPO's request to amend the 1,500 ARA forms that they have started on. SHPO has agreed to move the completion date from March 28, 2024 to July 31st, 2024 to complete that work, but we're here for the funding shortage.
Questions? If not, look for a motion.
Commissioner Beck, I move to approve the $13,315 for Northwind Resource Consulting to complete the Section 5 of the ARA forms.
Further discussion? General public? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Let's move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is 1026-0637 HPC1 report by the Community Development Department regarding the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Fast Forward 23 conference that was held in Washington, D.C. Unless there's some comments, maybe we wait for the January meeting with Dr. C. Brent, that she could give us a report at that point. So this is not an action item, it's just a report, so we'll move on to agenda item 11, 23-0638-HPC1, report by the Community Development Department regarding a year in review of ongoing and completed historic projects.
Chair Stodel, I apologize for interrupting, but if we could revisit number 10, and can we have a motion to hold that in abeyance until the next meeting?
I'm sorry.
You said you wanted to hold it, so we need an abeyance motion to hold it to the next meeting?
Even though it's not an action item.
It's still an agenda item.
Okay. I'd like to look for a motion for 23-0637-HPC1, the report on the attendance at the National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference in D.C. I'd like to hold that until our next HPC meeting. Would look for somebody to make a motion.
I move to hold that till the next meeting.
We have a motion. Further discussion? General public? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Thank you. Then let's move on to...
Excuse me, Chair. I'm sorry, and that date will be January 24th.
January 24th
Yes.
of 2024.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to item 12, 23-0636, HPC1, report by the Community Development Department regarding the Historic Preservation Commission's budget. Mike?
Excuse me.
Chair, I believe we're on item 11. Item 11? A report on the year in review.
We'll do that too.
Okay.
But why don't we, since we're on 12, well, let's go ahead and do 12 if you're prepared for it. If not, I'll back it up to 11. You're prepared for 11, all right? Item 11, 23-0638-HPC1, report by the Community Development Department regarding a year in review. No? Yeah,
Yes.
year in review on ongoing completed historic preservation projects. Mike, it's back to you.
Thank you, Chair. So for the 2023 year, with the Centennial Commission projects funded, we've had 5 documentaries, 3 historic sign restorations, 3 parades, and 5 events that celebrate Las Vegas history. Within the surveys and register listings, we've completed 2 surveys, the Historic West Side and Charleston Heights. 3 are in progress that we're given reports on today, the Rafael Rivera, and then Twin Lakes and Cliff Maze. And we have 1 local listing that was completed this year, John Mull's Meats, and then 1 local listing in progress, Track 3 home at 1425 Francis in the Huntridge neighborhood, and then 1 NHRP in progress listing of the historic house, Christensen House in the historic West Side. For trainings and conferences, we've had the National Alliance of Preservation Commission Summer Short Course, and then also followed by the National Trust for Historic Preservation Pass Forward 2023 conference that was attended just this past November. And then HPC projects that were grant funded, we had 2 bricks and mortar projects completed, 1 for a wall restoration, and then we had the West Side School alumni book that was revealed during the centennial of the historic West Side Elementary School that was also followed with a land acknowledgement ceremony and plaque. For strategic outreach, we've had 2 neighborhood meetings held, and then we met with the historic district residents to discuss new design guidelines for the Beverly Green and John S. Park neighborhoods. And then for Historic Preservation Month, we held our first Historic Preservation Month luncheon with 6 Historic Preservation Award recipients given out. That is my quick assessment of the past year.
Please, questions?
Commissioner Beck, for the record, is it possible for us to get a copy of your slides?
Absolutely.
That would be helpful to have.
Excuse me, Chair, could you please turn your mic on?
By my calculations, we're on agenda item 12.
Yes.
Good. 23-0639 HPC1, report by the Community Development Department regarding the Historic Preservation Commission's budget. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. For this item, I may rely on Diane if she's still on the phone. But from my understanding, we are approaching a budget shortfall, which we would be looking to go to the next Centennial Commission for a budget request of $75,000 that we would be looking to put on the January 22nd Centennial Commission meeting.
Diane, are you still with us?
Yes, and I'm sorry I'm not there. I'm very sick with the flu. That is correct. We are going to need to ask for more funding from the Centennial Commission, but we are looking at altering the MOU to up that amount, since we are doing many more projects and are more active than in the past, and that will be in on our January meeting.
Can we get that on the agenda right before Twin Lakes?
Excuse me, Mike.
So this is just a report, not an action item? Any questions?
That is correct. It's just to show the budget of what we have spent.
Questions? Questions? A lot of work behind this, the one lines that are in the previous report. And we'll also see here, the dollars are there, but the amount of hours and work that staff has put in to get these projects done. That's a great year. Other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 23-0640-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding approval of the 2024 Historic Preservation Commission meeting schedule. I'm sure you all had a chance to look at it. It's pretty standard. We meet the fourth Wednesday of most months. The details are there. Would look for a motion.
Commissioner Laramie, I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion for the discussion. General public. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously with the chair voting in favor. Let's move on to 14, report by the Community Development Department regarding the director's update. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. For this item, I've been given from Director Seth Floyd the past month. We've completed the mailing of 8 letters via certified mail to new homeowners within our historic districts. I believe that was a program we talked about, making residents aware as they purchase homes and move into the districts that they are in fact in a historic district.
All right, questions? Hearing none, let's then move on to the next agenda item, which is 15, report by the Community Development Department regarding project update list. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. For this item, bear with me as I read through the slides. And at any point, we have Diane Seabrand on the phone to interject if I'm missing something. But we have the ongoing work with the Cliff May Home Survey, also ongoing work with the Twin Lakes Historic Survey. We heard today the first draft of the Rafael Rivera Survey, also known as the NERSA, Neighborhood Revitalization Strategic Area Survey. We have the 1425 Francis Avenue property being introduced to the Planning Commission agenda to be listed as a historic property. Again, this is the property over in the Huntridge neighborhood. We have the Christensen House moving forward for nomination as a historic property. Old Mormon Fort, I believe we're getting that certification updated along with the historic West Side School. Diane has been in contact with the consultants on that. We have design guidelines that we will be kicking off for the historic West Side District. And then we've had, would say gladly, we've remedied or we've moved past the 700 Park Paseo and 1819 Beverly Way in terms of their certificate of appropriateness denials. They're now in the process of being remedied via code enforcement.
they're being remedied?
So yes, with the 700 Park Paseo, the property owner did approach to appeal or have a condition. At that point, council did not allow any further amendments to that condition, so they have made corrections to the property. They've amended physically the fences and the construction work done on the site. As of to date, regarding the 1819 Beverly Way, that property still does not removed what we affectionately call the clock tower, but that process of having the code enforcement citation going into further action puts restrictions on the property. So if she were to sell it, they'd have to disclose, and at some point that has to be remedied.
Mike, a quick question on the Park for Sale. Since this board denied it, and then they appealed it to the city council, and the city council denied their request, is there somewhere in the process that this board is going to be informed of that, and that we would be able to see what they're doing? Or do they have to go through another certificate of appropriateness to change back? What's the process?
So from this process, we would give an update on the compliance to what the certificate of appropriateness was looking for, a reduction in the fence height. And at that point, we have discussed meeting with the property owner because we may be suspect or aware that there are some other conditions that are still pending. There's some construction additions that have been done to the house that would require a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, but as far as the update on what we denied, will they have to come back through this process, or is that something Diane could handle administratively?
To this point, we should be able to handle it administratively, but I say that cautiously, just knowing the history of the property.
Okay, great, thank you. Further questions, comments? Then let us look to 1623-06.
Wait, sorry, this is Diane. Can I interrupt? There's a few more
Please, go
slides
ahead.
there, Mike.
Oh.
For the update, there's a few more slides that are going to give some information about some upcoming training and conferences I need you to go through, please.
Okay, so for the next item, I do want to mention that Boyd Productions is seeking home movies from the 1960s and 70s. These will be used for the inclusion of the next two installments for the City of Las Vegas Centennial documentary. If you wish to contribute any of these films, please send them to staff, care of Diane Seabrant or Teresa. In the Forum 2024 Preservation Under the Palms, the National Alliance of Preservation Commission's biennial conference. It's slated to be held July 31st to August 4th, 2024 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Please advise staff if you wish to attend. We need that confirmation by March 4th, 2024. And then Pass Forward 2024 conference, that will be October 28th through the 30th in New Orleans, Louisiana. So if you wish to attend, also please let staff know confirmation by March 4th, 2024. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. When was the date for the NAPC conference? July 31st to August 4th. And the other was October, the one in New Orleans?
No, but I can't bring it back.
October 28th.
Oh, did you want to? I thought you were trying to get a slide up.
I was.
There we
So
go.
yeah, Forum 2024, the one in West Palm Beach, that will be July 31st to August 4th. And then the one in New Orleans, October 28th through the 30th.
And then we're going to check and see if the Las Vegas Convention Authority is going to try and have one of the annual meetings here. All right, now we can move on. to the 1623-0641 HPC1 report by the Community Development Department regarding historical and archaeological resources and local media. That's all the material that's in there and attached. Any questions? If not, let's go to 17. This is the discussion for topics for future agenda items. Are there any suggestions for future agenda items? Robert.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Roberts. I have just several comments that I want to make regarding what future agenda items and updates that I'd like to hear about. So I'll just go through the list here briefly. One is regarding discussion or coordination with the fire department regarding the treatment of historic listed buildings or historic aged properties. There was an issue in the past with a fire that broke out at Floyd Lamb, and after the fire had been extinguished and the windows were to be boarded up, some of the weeping mortar was damaged around the property. So this wasn't a life or death situation. This was after the fact when we could have moved a little bit more slowly and calmly and kept damages from occurring. The next topic would be the East Fremont Motor Court Motels. Just looking for an update. I'm personally confused on, is the ownership still within Downtown Project or DTP? Are they listed on the register? Is there a plan to have them listed on any historic register? Do we have any protective covenants on those buildings, or can we implement any of that? We have seen several of them being demolished and or damaged from fire across the last year here, and I'd like to see that stopped. Another one is for the Lorenzi Twin Lakes Tennis Center and the new clubhouse that was presented earlier this year. The presenters in their renderings or conceptuals, they did not show any window security details or images, though they did admit that they are going to be implementing them. I feel that that's a big change to the overall aesthetic of the buildings. I have yet to see any of those window security systems presented back to us as to what they would look like. One property that's been outlying, and I've mentioned before as a concern of mine, I really think is important to the history of Las Vegas, is the Binion Ranch House. I'd like to have this commission, or in conjunction with other departments within the city, come together and maybe come up with an offer or an approach to the private owners, which are still the Binion family, to see what we can do working together to get that property preserved properly for the community and for the history of this town. Another one is the neighborhood signs that were erected in certain historic aged neighborhoods. Even though they're not officially designated historic, there's essentially misinformation on those signs. I don't know if we were ever going to implement presented changes to cover the word historic or address that any other way, but again, this has been about several months at least. Then to 801 East Charleston, the Legal Aid Center building. I know that it's not listed on any current register, and I've expressed my frustration with the decision to demolish the building by Legal Aid. I was wondering if we could ask Legal Aid to present what their plans are and explain what their preservation process is. I've been told that they were going to try and implement some or preserve some of the historic elements. I just don't know what that looks like. So as a courtesy, I would request that they would come here to the HPC and present to us. Also, before demolition occurs, I'd like to have the HPC notified as to when that would be. And before that happens, I would suggest that we have proper documentation of the building using HABS photography, or large format photography, which is kind of the industry standard for documenting buildings before they're demolished. And then I just, regarding the Huntridge Theater, I wanted to confirm that all the documents are in place. I wanted to see if we could have all documents reconciled with what is on file with the city clerk and make sure that we're all in possession of those final and official documents, so there's no question as to multiple and differing documents. And that's all I have. Thank you.
And my last question was, it's Mr. The owner of the Huntridge Theater is required by legal agreement to report to the HPC each quarter. He was due today. I know there's been some issues. Maybe we're off calendar, but I would hope that he would have a quarterly report at our January meeting. Thank you. Other comments, questions? Then the last item on the agenda is citizen participation. There are no citizens in the audience. Please.
I'd just like to make a comment here because I didn't know where else to make it. So as a citizen, the links to the packet on the Las Vegas portal have not been working, so you can only download each individual agenda item. Just wondering what happened to being able to download the entire packet as one big file, because that would be easier to review.
There's two ways. I had the same problem. There's two ways to get to it. And the way when we get this from the city clerk's office, it comes the way you're talking about. You have to download everything, or you can have to hit each one. Whereas if you go to the cities.gov site and go down and click agendas, meetings and agendas, that takes you into some other way, and you can do it the way it's always been. But the new way, it just takes you right to this awkward spot. So it pops up two different ways. One, you go through LasVegasCity.gov, meetings and agenda. It takes us the way we were doing it before. And that's different than this. Anyway, do you know what we're talking about?
I had the same problem. So it was the HTML agenda came in one item at a time. But then I figured out how to get to the packet and download the entire packet. So I ran into the same obstacle.
Well, when you go to the city.gov site, and that's the first page, so to speak, and you go to the government and then the meetings and agendas, that takes you into a different spot on the meetings and agendas, and it looks like it's the same.
Okay, well, I'll do some more research.
Well, and to your point, Chair, that's how I access it. So what you're describing may not be, if Michelle or Commissioner Laramie, if you're getting it via the email, maybe that's something I think we can look into. Is if
No, I usually traditionally went through the portal to get it, and the packet links are no longer working there through the portal.
The meeting and agenda link, is that the one? Or you're talking about the individual items?
I just go in and it shows me all the upcoming meetings. And so if I go to Historic Preservation Commission, I can either click on agenda, which takes me to the itemized agenda and download, but where it says packet under that, there's no option to download a packet. It's just like a dead link there. So I don't know if there's another area, or if maybe this is just some weird block setting on my, but anyways, we can close the public comment and I can work with you guys offline.
We are adjourned.
Is
I had
this
my
where
mic
you
on
go?
too.
Oh.